So I want to be sure to introduce the Scholarship Foundation. So we are over 100-year-old non-for-profit organization that believes that an educated society is essential to a healthy democracy. And we have three main functions at the foundation. We like to call them our 3 A's. So the first is awarding, where we award $5 billion annually to about 500 students. That's in the form of our interest-free loans, scholarship grants, and paid internships, all which are need-based and last dollar. The foundation also does advising, which is the second A, where we provide guidance and support to students and families as they navigate the admissions and financial aid system of higher education. And through our advising program, we serve about 6,000 students every year with need to know information, and we join them on their journey throughout post-secondary education. Our third A is advocacy, where we engage students and recent graduates to identify, analyze, and lead efforts to influence policy that affects them at the school, state, and federal level. Next, I would like to introduce our advising team. We have all of us, I believe, are on this call. There's not just one of us. We have an amazing team of advisors. We have Felipe Martinez, our senior student advisor, Teresa Steinkamp, our advising director, and Robert Sagasumi and myself, Dominisha Newton, as student advisors. At the end of this, our time together, I will be sure to share with you all the ways that you can connect and engage with our student advisors. You can ask your questions, things that may come up later. You can keep them as someone to have in your back pocket as a resource if questions come out throughout your post-secondary education, or if you are in high school or planning to go back to school, or wherever you are in your process. We would love to work with you and then support you in accomplishing your dreams, your goals, and providing you with the necessary information so that you can do that. So our purpose, why we are here, why are we talking about entrance counseling? So throughout our time, we're going to learn the what, who, and when of entrance counseling. We're also going to touch on how to complete it, what you'll need to complete it, and I will offer some ideas on what you should keep an eye out while you're completing it. So starting off with the what. So entrance counseling is a process that federal student loan borrowers will need to complete to be sure that they understand all the terms and conditions of their loans. So it's going to touch on interest rates. What is it? There will be some information on your payment schedule. What is repayment? What can you expect? When can you expect to start? And then you're also going to understand your rights and responsibilities as a borrower. A great thing about federal student loans compared to private loans is that there are things put in place to protect the student loan borrower that may not be available for other types of loans. So during your interest counseling, those things will be covered as well. And when you're completing interest counseling, you want to be sure that you select your school that you're attending so that they can be notified that you've completed it. You can also expect to learn what your cost will be and how you can pay for it. Interest counseling will also touch on preparing yourself for a successful repayment. And then they say they're going to check your skills by going over the things that were introduced during that counseling. So not everyone has to go through this process of completing interest counseling, but it's really important to know if you are someone that needs to complete it. So let's talk about who has to complete it. So students that are receiving the direct subsidized, the direct unsubsidized loan, or the direct plus loan will need to complete interest counseling if they're receiving it for the first time. So for example, if I am an undergraduate student, let's say I'm a first-time undergraduate student, and I decide to take out a direct subsidized loan to help me cover my cost of attendance. I'm a new student, so this is my first time taking out this loan, so I will need to complete interest counseling. Now, on the other hand, if you are a graduate student, a student pursuing a professional degree, and let's say you took out a subsidized loan during your freshman year, but you didn't do the unsub, but during your graduate time in school, you decide to take out a direct unsubsidized loan. So being that this is your first time, you'll need to complete interest counseling as well. Now, there is a loan for parents of undergraduate students, a federal loan called the Parent Plus loan, whenever given to parents of undergraduate students. And you all may need to complete interest counseling as well whenever parents take out the direct plus loan for parents. And something else I want to mention at this slide is that counseling would be required for parents that take out this plus loan if they have an adverse credit history according to the U.S. Department of Education. So keep an eye out for that if that's the case for your parent or parent who's listening to this video, that counseling may be required for you as well. And then the process for completing interest counseling is going to be similar for the parent and the student, but the parent would need to log in with their own FSAID username and password. And if the student's completing it, they would log in with their FSAID username and password. And just in case anyone is unsure what that is, that's the username and password that you would have used to sign in and complete and electronically sign your FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So now we're moving on to the when. Now, you may have been able to identify if you needed to complete it or not. So when to complete it is the next point. So interest counseling has to be completed once you've accepted your first time direct subsidized, unsubsidized, or plus loan. And then it has to be completed before that loan can be dispersed to you. So again, I'm a first time student. I either fill out the form that the school gives to me to accept financial aid, or I fill it out online. And sorry, Robert, would you mind letting the person in the waiting room? I just noticed it. Thank you. And so I filled out that form online, and or I've checked the portal online and I've accepted stuff. I've accepted grants, scholarships, and my first time loan. Once I've done that, then I can go ahead and complete the interest counseling requirement, because that is required before my loan can be dispersed to me. So at this point, coming up, we're going to discuss what you'll need to complete interest counseling, what sites you'll go to, and things that you can keep an eye out for. But I wanted to be sure to take some time and pause to see if we had any questions. I know we just had someone just join us, so welcome. And so for our participants that are here live with us, you can feel free to throw any questions that you have in this point at the chat. In the chat, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. But then for individuals that may be watching this video at a later time, I welcome you to send your questions to us via email at info@sfstl.org. So if there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourself now for folks that are with us live. And if there are no questions, that is completely fine. I will continue on and touch on those things that you will need to complete interest counseling. So first, you will need a verified FSAID. You would get that from studentaid.gov. Again, that's the same username and password that you would use to complete and electronically sign your FAFSA. You'll also need to know what the annual tuition fees and expenses will be for you at the school you plan to attend for that academic year. And that information can be found on your financial aid award letter. Now, just to be sure we're all on the same page, your financial aid award letter is a document. It could be a physical document or something that you can access through your school portal. But that document is going to include your cost of attendance for one academic school year. It's also going to include any financial aid that you've received. So it may have grant or scholarship awards, work study awards, and loans as well. So you want to be sure that you have that document handy when you sit down to complete your interest counseling. Another thing you want to be sure to have on hand is time. Interest counseling will have to be completed in one go. Unfortunately, it doesn't have an ability for you to save and come back to it later. And so typically it takes people 20 to 30 minutes to complete it. So you want to be sure that you give yourself enough time to complete entrance counseling so that there are no holdups on your loan being dispersed to you. All right, so how do we complete interest counseling? You start off by going, after you've accepted your loan, you would go to studentaid.gov. So www.studentaid.gov. Here you'll see on the screen, this is what the website will look like when you get there. It may look familiar to you all. At the top, there is a drop-down menu that says complete aid process. That's where you're gonna head next once you've already signed in, and you're gonna see something that says entrance counseling. That's going to be one of the things that you will need to complete in order to complete the aid process. Next, I want to go on to the things that you should look for, things you can keep an eye out for while you're going through the interest counseling process. So during the counseling, the system is going to estimate how much you need to borrow for that year. And that number, although it will be an estimate, this is something that you should pay attention to. It's really important, and it's going to help you plan for your future. It's going to help you plan for that academic year, but also the years to come. You may look at that number and think, I think I want to lower my debt load. We always want to lower our debt load, but we may start thinking about the profession that we anticipate to go into after we graduate college. You'll have a chance to look at what your monthly payment will be. And so you may decide that you want to start taking actions either in that current year or the year to come so that you can minimize your debt each year or even eliminate it. So you may be a student that decides that I'm actually going to change the school that I was considering, or I'm going to explore different schools that will be more affordable and that will allow me to take out less loans or no loans at all. You may even explore living off campus if that's an option for you. Living off campus or with a family member, if that's an option, or shared living with roommates, because in most cases, living off campus can be more affordable than living on campus housing. Another option that you might explore as a student is finding a part-time job somewhere near campus or even on campus. Another thing to look out for is consequences of loan delinquency or default. And I want to spend a second explaining what these two things are to be sure we're all on the same page. But they will be explained in greater detail when you go through the interest counseling process. So delinquency is when you miss a payment. So let's say, for example, I'm a student or I'm a graduate. I've graduated college. I had a loan repayment. It was scheduled for yesterday and I missed it. So now today my loan is delinquent. I missed a payment. That can be corrected by making that missed payment and continuing to make the following payments. And then the next thing is default. So default happens when you miss a payment for more than 270 days. So because of circumstances that I've experienced, I've missed my payments for so many days that my loan has gone into default. Now, both of these options, delinquency and default, they do have negative impacts on your credit score. And having negative notes or dings on your credit score will have an impact on you, which is why we want to try to avoid these things from happening. It could impact your purchasing power, such as your ability to rent an apartment or a house, your ability to purchase a car or a house, or even getting a cell phone plan. So we want to be sure that we avoid these things from happening, that we pay attention to what they say on the interest counseling as ways to avoid this, how to manage your repayment, or that you reach out. You may be going through interest counseling your first year in college and you're entering repayment several years later. But maybe you can reach out to someone. You're welcome to reach out to us at the Scholarship Foundation. And also your loan servicer is a great resource as well if you have questions or concerns about making your repayments. Before we move on to the next point, I do want to say that loan default could result in greater consequences such as paycheck garnishments, or your tax refunds or federal benefits automatically being, or portions of it automatically being applied to your loan that's in default. So we want to be sure that we are avoiding that is the point that I'm trying to make. So I will move on. The next point is what to do if you accept or receive more loan aid than you need. Unfortunately, this may be something that's not clearly explained to you when you accept your financial aid through your school. But if you decline loans offered to you, you can decline loans that are offered to you if you don't need them, or you can just accept a portion of it. But if you find yourself in a position where you have accidentally accepted loans or later realize that you don't need a loan that you have accepted, you can return that to your school with no penalty or fee if you do that within 120 days. So keep that in mind. If you've already accepted financial aid and one of them was a loan that you don't need, just know that you can return those to your school, and your financial aid office should be able to support you in doing that. Something else I want to add with that point is to encourage students to not wait, knowing you may be getting a refund checked. If that is financial aid that you don't need, I encourage you to go ahead and do that process early on than waiting for a refund check, because depending on the type of loan, you may be paying interest on it, and we want to try to avoid or minimize our debt load as best as we can. So the next step is, or the next piece that I want to point out as an important piece when you're going through loan counseling is to take a note of those next steps that are mentioned. At the end of your counseling, they're going to offer you some information on what to do next. One of those things is to sign a master promissory note, which is a legal document where you are promising as a student loan borrower to pay back those loans in accordance to the terms and conditions associated with that loan. So that is another document that we should be paying close attention to. It's actually something that you should be able to access through the studentaid.gov website. In that tab that I mentioned early on, there will be a note as well there that says Master Promissory Note, and that's a document you should review, ask questions if you have them before you sign it. And once your questions have been answered and you're okay with what you've learned after asking your question, you can go ahead and sign that document, because that's another thing that's required before your loan will be dispersed to you. Something else I want to note at this point is to be sure to check with your school for any additional steps that you would need. They may have a separate process for interest counseling, and they might have additional steps for you to complete before your financial aid will be dispersed to you. So all in all, check with your school. They're going to be the best resource, your financial aid office, to answer those specific questions, to be sure that there is nothing that's going to keep your funding from being dispersed to you. All right, just checking the chat to see if we have any questions, because at this point we have reached the end. I do want to point out that you have our contact information for the Scholarship Foundation at the top, our phone number, And also, if you have general questions, you can reach out to us at sfstl.org. Also, I introduced our advising team to you all. We're a team of 4, and the link at the bottom will also allow you to connect with one of our student advisors. And I will go ahead and throw that in the chat right now. So there are several options that you can connect with one of our student advisors if you go through that link. We are here. We are happy to support you with any questions that you have, no matter where you are in your process. We would love to hear about your goals and discuss together how we can best support you in reaching that goal. Another link I'm going to throw in the chat is one where you can find additional information, different opportunities where we are offering to support students throughout the summer. So there are our summer advising opportunities. For people that are watching this video at a later time, you can go to www.sfstl.org and search for 2021 Summer Advising to find out what other opportunities we have planned this summer in supporting students. So we have a little over 5 more minutes left. And so I want to be sure to invite you all, those that are joining us live, to ask any questions that you might have. It could be about interest counseling, but if you have questions about anything else, financial aid or college in general, you are welcome to ask those questions right now. Thank you all.